closing in on Kabbalah Torah, which means that, in a sense, we have to rearrange a shtickle our perspective on life. Let me try to explain this with an incident that occurred. I was sitting home one morning, and I'm usually not home in the morning, but I came home for a minute or two to pick something up, and I was running out. So I have like this, 3-year-old Anikel. He's sitting on the chair, and he's turning the pages of some advertisement or something. And there was a picture there of yours truly for some advertisement for something. I don't know what it was, for some shear. And he saw the picture. And as I'm walking out, I hear the kid saying, well, he said it in Yiddish, but I'll give you a free translation. He said, pointing to the picture, he said, "Oh, there's the Zaidi that lives in Bobby's house." And I'm walking out and I go, "What? What was that supposed to mean?" All of a sudden I'm the Zaidi that lives in Bobby's house. Wait a second, slow down. Maybe it's the Bobby that lives in Zaidi's house. Like, what's this? Of course, I'm not going to explain to a 2-year-old how joint ownership works, or tenants in common, or things like that. But I began to wonder, so why did he say that? There's the Zaidi that lives in Bobby's house. And the answer is that from his perspective, what's real and what's like, agav. What's real is his Bobby, because his Bobby is the one that changes him and takes care of him when he should babysits those few hours, till he goes back to the warm embrace of his mother. So it's Bobby's house. I mean, that's what's Nogeyat to him. And there's this guy with a beard that shows up once in a while and waves to him, so that's just the Zaidi that lives in Bobby's house. So really we define in our own life what's real and what's like extracurricular in terms of what we think that we really need. And the Rabbi said it's almost impossible, really, not to mention anything about the tragedy that took place in Eretz Yisrael. We have an entire family, Talmidei Chachamim, and just what happened in one shot. I mean, I heard from someone that was by the Levi, he said he never saw anything like it. Literally, people by the Levi were fainting, one after the other. It was just a tragedy beyond imagination, where someone lost his brakes, called in, and they have it's not 911 there, whatever it is, but the equivalent of the call, let's see, 00? 100, right? And And calling in and saying the car is not stopping and whatever. I don't want to go into the gory details, but the idea that an entire family is wiped out under those circumstances, in those couple of moments of terror, and that a 7-year-old girl survives beyond, like they said, they don't know which is more strange, what happened to the car or the fact that this kid survived almost unscathed, as if like this was the hashgacha. And someone said to me, you heard, and the mother was crying and saying, daven to Hashem, and how could this happen? I said, well, maybe the mother's tefillah saved this one girl, because they're saying they don't understand how this girl survived. The Chafetz Chaim, when he heard once that the Mississippi River overflowed, he said, we have to do tshuva. They explained to the Chafetz Chaim that there's a very long way from the Mississippi until Radin. You know what I mean? It's a different congressional district. But the Chafetz Chaim said when something like that happens in the world, and it reaches our ears, and we heard it, there's a reason Hashem wants us to hear it. And if people are suffering and it doesn't change your life, there's something wrong with us. If the Chafetz Chaim said that about an overflowing Mississippi River, how do you think the Chafetz Chaim would react to a story like this? I think that the way we have to react is that the brakes failed, but maybe the Rabbi Shalom wants us to put the brakes on life. Because you see here the test of dealing with this from an Amunah perspective, like every difficult gzeira is, how one makes the brach of Daina Emes. And the miracle of life for a 7-year-old girl, that they don't understand how she survived, and the life that she's going to have to live now with those last couple of moments. Thinking about a mother turning around and saying, please, please. I think it has to change us some way. And perhaps the way it has to change us is that we have to check our brakes. That there are things that are going on in our life that we know we have to put the brakes on. And the question is whether or not those brakes are working. And everyone knows in his own life what he has to put the brakes on. And maybe it's those brakes that have to be restored. You know, by Har Sinai, so one of the great miracles was that they saw the kailais, and they heard the thunder. How do you see kailais and hear thunder? All right, so the Mefarshim explained it in many different ways, besides just by saying it's a nes. There is a medrash that says that Adam Harishon was blind and deaf. There is such a medrash. Adam Harishon was blind and deaf. And I think that some Sefer explains what does that mean. It means, he says, that our eyes and ears, which we are very thankful for, and we thank Hashem every day for, is a gift. But it's a gift that allows our neshama, which for all practical purposes is in a kind of spacesuit down here in this world, called the human body, because we are the neshama. Our body is just a spacesuit that allows for the neshama to function in this world that needs oxygen and so on. And just like an astronaut has, or whatever things that help him see through the shield, and certain microphones that are set up so he can hear what's going on around him, so the Rebbeinu Shem gave us our eyes, which are the windows to our neshama, and the ears, which are the microphone to our neshama. In the reality of life, which is after 120, so he explains, I think Reb Tzaddik touches on this as well. We don't have to see through eyes and hear through ears. But we, a neshama in a body, has no other way to access reality other than with our senses. But the neshama, when it's not limited to guf, does not need the senses to be able to see or hear. Adam Harishon, prior to Chet Eitz Hadas, that was not limited to a mortal guf, had a much greater sense of reality. You have these post-death things, yesh darshim, l'gnai, l'shvach, they're true, they're not true, but l'maisa, there apparently is such a thing. I have heard it from one person that was in a coma, and they did have cardiac arrest, and he said he heard every single word that was going on. And he explained to the doctors, what he saw. And he saw it, how did he see it? If he's laying on the table face up, how did he see looking down? So, if you don't have your eyes, you don't have your ears, how did you see? And he explained that he saw it in a way that you don't even understand. Because we're looking through a glass. We're hearing through some type of a microphone. I was there. The reality of life post-death is much more real than it is when our neshama is limited to a guf. And Klal Yisrael, by Har Sinai, was zoicha to this level of Adam Harishon Koydem Chet Eitz Hadas. That's a little bit shot in the Parcha Nishmasan. And Memela, the pasuk says, they heard the lightning and they saw the thunder. They weren't limited in their senses to the dimensions as we are in this world. But to take it from a little bit of a different perspective, the Balatanya says, how do we relate to that? But here's something that we can relate to. Especially now, and we're coming off this Sifa this week, and this moment of just the miracle of getting 50,000 Jews in one stadium. I mean, someone said, you'll never get them under one roof. There was no roof. Right? And so that's not the reason they took a stadium without a roof. Okay? Yeah, there were walls there. It's Rosh Hashanah, I think it's Rosh Hashanah, the Raisa that's around. The miracle of the event, and the seriousness and the Mesiras Nefesh of the Gedolim and the Tzaddikim that came to this event, and the amount of money and organization. But the idea, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. The Jew that's stuck on a desert island, and they found him after a while, and there were 2 shacks over there. So what's that? He says 2 Batim Midrashim. He said, what do you need 2 for? He says 1 he damens and the one that he doesn't walk into, right? How do you have this? Right? This is a Nes Nigla. It shows how Klal Yisrael wants, and how Klal Yisrael is yearning, and it shows how there really are no barriers between us. But if you listen to what the tzaddikim were saying there, the Rebbes, the Rosh Yeshivas, there are people that their lives are taking a left turn. Meaning to say, you have people that live on their phones, and I've seen this. Their phone, where a wife said to a husband, someone told me a story, it's either your phone or me. And I don't want to tell you which one he picked. This is his phone. This is his life. You know, he can't. His bank and his this and the stocks and the news and the this and the yens and the pictures and the social life that he developed outside of his family with Facebook. I don't want to get into it. There are people that we have a life. There's a wife. There's a children. There's a family. There's our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we're living a totally different lives. We're being drawn, almost sucked into a different world. And a world of a different type of a social network, which is distorting who we are. This world is nothing. This world, you could have $10 trillion. You're still at the mercy of one heartbeat, which makes it all meaningless. This world, you're at the mercy of a set of brakes, of a set of little brake fluid over there, which is all hashgacha nifla. The real world is the world up there, the world where there are no limitations. The Yidden by Har Sinai understood something. Now most of us, right, we think about our life. You know, my next lease on my car, and my house, and my job, and my promotion. And he said this to me, and this guy at work is trying to push me out. And these are experiences we all go through in our lives. Oh yeah, and this Shavuot, you know, we're going to do God a big favor. We're going to be up those few hours, for which we're going to sleep 3 weeks before and 3 weeks afterwards. And we're going to come to shul at 12:30 and doze off and run to get a piece of cheesecake and coffee and go weiter and order the barber coffee. And we're going to come 4 o'clock in the morning. I was up the whole night learning with such serious nefesh. So again, for many of us, the Yiddishkeit is, you know, I have my life, which I'm, you know, I got to make money, and I got this, and I got to do that, and then there's my clothes, and there's my car, and there's also, you know, I'm a good boy. I'm going to go up the derech. I'm on the derech. I'm wearing tzitzis. There's also Shabbos, and there's also, you know, a shiur, right? For the Yidden, they saw it very differently. We see our lives, and we hear there's a Olam Haba out there. By Har Sinai, they saw Olam Haba. Oh boy, this world is nothing. I mean, it's so transient. It disappears in a second. And if all goes well, right, what does the Mishnah say? By the time you make it to 70, 80 years old, right? All your tithes are meaningless and useless, and the money is useless. I've told you this many times. I went to visit somebody in the nursing home, and he was tzebrach, and he was a multimillionaire. What happened? He says he invested with Madoff. Fairlich. What did say? Like you're sitting here in the nursing home. So and he says, I'll never be Michaelim. He said, listen, the guy, he didn't mean it. You know, he started out legitimate, and afterwards he went off. I don't know exactly what happened, but I tried to appease him. He says, not made off. He says, the guy that told me. Why did anyone have to tell me? I would have never known. Right? When you get older, the money is useless. What does the Mishnah say? Ben Tishim, you ready? Ben Meyetz Kilu Mesu Bottle of Avram and Oilam. Somebody once came to the Satmar Rebbe. He said he's very worried. He's turning 90 years old, and the Mishnah says, Ben Tishim, you're out of it. So the Rebbe told him, don't worry. It says Ben Arboim Labina. When you're 40, you get your smart, your brains. He said that never happened, so you don't have to worry about this either. He says, obviously, for whatever reason, the Mishnah may not apply to you. Okay, but what is this world? This world is nothing. Yet we live this world as if we're here forever, and we hear there's a Torah, we hear Epis, we hear, we have to watch our eyes, we have to watch our things, because as the Chavetz Chaim explains, that our eyes are the window to the neshama, and while the eyes are temporary, as the whole human body is, your neshama is not. So therefore, the Yidden in Har Sinai, they said, whoa. What we see, they heard. What we hear, they saw. They saw, oh my goodness, this world is nothing. Everything is the Olam Hamas. And they have to remind them, by the way, there's a world. What world? There's a Mishnah, Shar Shenagach has a para. There's a Shar, there's a para. Oh, okay. And it must be, if the Mishnah says so, there must be a Shar and a para someplace. That's the way it worked. So they saw what we heard, they heard what we saw, and vice versa. And I think that this applies to us very much. Not chas v'shalom, to go say, we should be ones to say why a tragedy happened. No. We're not Nevi'im. Rabbi Yaakov once said, if you do that, you're over a noise devarim. Who are you? How do you know? But I think in terms of, we have to change our lives. What Kabbalah Torah means to us. Genikshine. There are people that their life is YouTube, and their life is Facebook, and their life is, and their wife and children, or their husband and children disappears, is disintegrating in front of their eyes. What are you seeing and what are you hearing? Get it straight. Get it straight. I want to tell you something very, very sad. I was someplace by a certain event, I don't want to say what, when, or where, and somebody was having a medical emergency. Then he was nebuch. It was a sight that you don't want to see, and a tzollah came running, and there were a bunch of kids there with their phones videoing, this person in his medical state. And I looked at that and I said, we have a major problem. We have a major, major problem. I would think you see someone, clutching his chest and shaking back and forth, you grab a tiller, or you turn to the corner. If you're taking that in video, maybe I'll get it on YouTube, maybe this may say, whoa, do we have all the other problems with technology, with what's going on? We have a major problem because instead of living the life that there's a yid in trouble over here, there's any man in trouble over here, my life has to stop and help him. If I don't know if I'm not at solid, let me say Tillim, let me do this, let me that, let me misspell, let me do tshuva, let me do something instead, let me chop this video. We have a major, major problem. Not pashut. We are disconnecting from reality. I went with my boy right before the shir to the store to get him his for his bar mitzvah, to get his stuff. And so he says, what size do you think he is? So the salesman says, a size 12, a size 14, I don't know. So I like this particular salesman. He has a chain, never knew why. But I chap tonight. So I said to him, so what do you think I am? Also a size 12 or a size 14? So I thought he was going to say, yeah, times 10. But he looked at me and said, yeah, I wish. And I stopped right there and I said, wait a second. If I was the salesman and a guy came in, and said, am I a size 12? I would have said, you wish. You know what he said? He said, I wish. A little symbolism. But it gave me, look at this guy's thinking. He's saying, well, I wish you were more, you were watching your weight. You know the greatness of that? Do you realize how this person is thinking? Right? You know what that means? That he was noisei chen. He has a chen. Why does he have a chen? It may be a little slip of the tongue, a fraudulent slip one way or another, but that I wish instead of you wish. Something is happening to this person. How can I capitalize on this? Let me video this. Or, I wish you're better. What can I do for you? That's no difference in the world. Everything changes. And this is dragging us down. It's dragging us down the way we are living on our computers and our phones and the way we connect and we relate with others. Rabbi say. So I think I don't want to really go too much on this because I want to talk about Shavuot and it's getting late. But I think in terms of this beautiful event this week, let me just say, the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, Arba midos b'holchi l'beis hamedrash. There are four different kinds of people that go to the Beis HaMedrash. There's number one, holech ve'ena oisa. There's a person who goes, he listens to the speeches, he doesn't do a single thing about it. Schar halicha. At least he has schar halicha. The person goes to the Beis HaMedrash, doesn't answer one amen yehesh Rabbi. Doesn't learn. But he has schar halicha, assuming he attended to go. There's oisa ve'ena hailach. There's a guy that does, but he doesn't go to the Beis HaMedrash. So schar ma'isa b'yadai. Okay, he has schar ma'isa. So there's hailach v'oisa. There's you go and you do it, you're a chassid. Loi hailach v'loi oisa, the Mishnah calls that person a rasha. So now, there's for a week people were asking, you're going, and then finally, I can't take this anymore, right? The morning after, so what's all the questions in the mikveh? You went. I'm over with it already, right? But I realized that you're going, I have an option. You went, it's too late. Either I did go or I didn't go, right? You've got to chaperine in this world when the question is still, are you, not did you. But in any event, so there are those that went, but it didn't have an effect on them. Have schar halicha. There are those that went. There are those that are saying, I got to change something in my house. Something has to change here. He didn't go. Oh, good. He has schar ma'isa. There's the hailach v'oisa, that's the chassid. And I think we really have to be careful not to fall into this fourth category of loy hailach v'loy oisa. I'm not interested and I'm not going to change my life one drop. Breaks is a dangerous thing. And we have to learn to apply it. I learn to apply it. You notice, by the way, that this entire event would have been in big trouble if it rained, right? And they said the Skelene Rebbe Zalzan Gesundenstark was davening for 3 weeks. He said that it shouldn't rain. Do you notice that a couple of hours later there was a major, major storm? I don't know about you. Did you hear that thunder the next morning? I was in Milah Shemon Esrei and I was up to Shema Kelenu, and I was just thinking about this problem with my roof that has a leak. And I was saying, Hashem, help me. And all of a sudden, boom! And I said, okay, Hashem, forget the roof. Just, bring the goal of a Klal Yisrael. I said, whoa, I had a feeling I caused it, There was people in earthquakes. The thunderstorm says, I think I'm the one that caused it. I was just thinking, all of a sudden, kaboom, right? Okay. I think the Rabbi was showing us something over here, right? It's been raining almost all week. Definitely was cloudy. And a few hours after this event, kaboom, the heavens opened up, and there's massive flooding all over the place. The FDR is flooded. It doesn't take much for the FDR to be flooded, but there was flooding all over. As if the Rabbi is saying, don't take it for granted that it didn't rain. Somebody was mispalel of it. I held up the clouds for you. As if Kosh Baruch Hu was showing us a couple of hours later, what happened. I think that's interesting to note. Okay, so we have a census in this week's parsha. And as a matter of fact, Rashi tells us the Yidden were counted 3 times. When they came out of Mitzrayim, they were counted. When they fell by the Egel, they were counted. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to settle his Shechina on Klal Yisrael, they were counted. Why is God constantly counting us? He knows the number. He doesn't have to count us. What is the point of this counting? And what are the 3 different types of counting? Chumash Bamidbar begins with the counting of Klal Yisrael. It's not even in order. It's Ein Mukdam Memucher B'Torah, but there's a reason that it goes out of order, because the pasuk Dafka begins with the counting of Klal Yisrael. As a matter of fact, it is called, right, Pekudim. The whole Sefer Chumash HaPekudim. That's what the Gemara in Yuma says. That's what the Baal Korah read. So the whole Bamidbar is called the counting. It's all named after the counting. What is the significance so much of counting? The Bar Moshe explains, you know what counting means? It means that no human being should ever say that what I do is not important. What am I to the world? I'm a nothing. Really? You're a nothing? The Rabbi Shalom has a cheshbon. 600,000, X amount of people. The Rabbi Shalom has a cheshbon for the population of the world. And there's a number there. And guess what? If you're not there, the whole number is wrong. The point of a number, and the reason the Torah stresses this, is to show that every single yachid is necessary to do what he can to make this work. You remember that old story they used to say, a guy's walking down the street, there's someone jumping on a sewer cover, and he's going 23, 23, 23, 23, 23. He goes, what are you doing? He says, I have this unbelievable thrill of jumping on a sewer cover, saying 23, 23, 23. He goes, you're out of your mind. No, it's a tremendous thrill. You're not normal. No, it's a tremendous thrill. He says, try it. Anyone looking? Okay. So he gets on, he goes just like this, on the sewer cover. Yeah. 23? Yeah, 23. Starts jumping. 23, 23. You feel it? No. You don't feel excited? No. No. In order to really feel the thrill, you have to remove the sewer cover and then jump. That's what I did. And then I really felt the thrill. Serious? Yeah. So he removes it, and the guy, 20, wee, boom, he puts the sewer cover on. He hears a bunch of crash screaming downstairs. He starts going 24, 24, 24, 24, right? We take things for granted in our life, and we don't understand the importance of an individual. A minyan is that every single prat has to be there. And if the yachid is missing, the yachid is gone. The Rabbi Shalom has a certain amount of neshamas. All of the neshamas were created by Sheshis and Bereshis, as I state in the Medrash and Parshas Pekudei. There are no new neshamas. There are new neshamas that are being sent down to this world and being brought back. There's a lot of traffic. But there are no new neshamas. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Bereshis bara Elokim, the Rabbi Shalom created all of us, and there's an exact amount. And we each have to do what we have to do. And if we don't, the whole Bria is missing something. And there's no Har Sinai. There's no Kabbalah HaTorah. If you don't have every single last person there. Because Kabbalah HaTorah was an exact number of letters, an exact number of neshamas, an exact number of chalakim in Eretz Yisrael, and no one can say, I'm not important, because if you're not there, the number doesn't add up. I read this thing that, it was an old article, but someone that won this lottery scratch off, you get $1,000 a week. He won. So they interviewed him and said, what are you going to do now with $1,000 a week? He says, now, that every week that I'm alive, I'm getting $1,000. He says, I'm going to start watching my cholesterol, my blood pressure, because I don't want to die early. It's like $1,000 a week. Hello? That's the reason you don't want to die early? What's the value of life itself? That's not a reason to try to be healthy? Every day, every year, what it is? A while ago, I had my 50th birthday. I'm not going to tell you how long ago. And so one of my kids made this little cute chocolate with like a $50 bill and a bunch of things. So again, so he told me that one of his, whoever was making this, one of his kids, one of my eniklach really, wanted it. Okay, there's extra, you'll get it tomorrow. And extra, yes, what is this? He said, Zaidi's 50 years old today. Because Sadie's already 50? Yeah. And he didn't skip any year till then? Like, how did he get to 50 so fast? He didn't skip so many years? No, we don't skip any years. Every second of life and every moment of life is a gift of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, it says that the Yidden were counted 3 times. When they came out of Mitzrayim, they were counted. By the Chet HaEgel, they were counted. And Kishabal Hashrois Shchinosai Aleim, by the Mishkan, they were counted. Now, Rabbi Say, Zok the Sefer Ber Moshe from the Yerush Rebbe. These 3 countings go on in every person's life. The Rabbi Hashem is constantly recalculating and recounting us. There's first Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yetzias Mitzrayim means, as the Noam Elimelech explains it, and he says that's why Yetzias Mitzrayim is mentioned so many times in the Torah, that there's a point in your life where you say, I blew it. There's no way in the world I'm going to fix my relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. I'm going to forget it. I am way out in left field. It's a guy chinish. And there's a Yetzias Mitzrayim. The Rebbe Hashem says, no. I have cheshbon. There's no such thing as someone being disconnected. I am counting you. And if you really want, I will recount everybody to make sure you're in the count, and you'll come out of Mitzrayim with a new start. And it is almost inevitable that we're going to blow it by the Chet HaEgel. There's going to be a Chet HaEgel in our life. Just so we thought we had it all made, and we reached the level of Adam Rishon Kodim Chet Etzadas, boom, we're faced with an Nisayan, and we blow that Nisayan. It says in the times of the Chayza of Lublin, there was a Yid who was fasted ben Shabbos l'Shabbos. He was an Ish Kaddish, but they had one taina on him, that he was parish, separated from everybody. His avodah did not interact with anyone. So Min HaShamayim, they decided they're going to teach him a lesson. Now his minig was he fasted from Mitzvah Shabbos till Friday night. Friday night, or Friday right before Shabbos, because you're not supposed to come into Shabbos when you're hungry, he would come in right before this man. He would come home from shul. He was there all 7 weeks, 7 days in shul. He would come home Friday an hour before this man. His wife would leave him his clothes in a certain box with a key. He would go to the mikveh. He would come back for the mikveh right before this man. His wife prepared him a hot glass of milk. That got him through Kabbalah Shabbos. And Friday night he made Kiddush. So 1 week he comes home. The key's not there. He says to his wife, the key's not here. She says, the key's there. I put the key with your clothes. The key is not here. I put the key there. If you didn't put the key there because the key is not here, please come find the key. She says, but the milk's going to boil over. What do you think the milk's going to boil over? Find the key. She comes looking, and she says, the key's right there. Just fell down. Okay, it fell down. Okay, you said it was right there, but it fell down. Fine. He takes the key. She runs in. The milk boiled over. And it went on to the chicken. It went on to the meat. Oh, mess. There was nothing to eat. And he comes back from the mikveh. Where's my milk? And she's crying. No milk. What do you mean no milk? I fast. I fast from Motzai Shabbos till Friday. I fast. What do you mean no milk? You don't care for me. What do you mean I don't care for you? I try. You don't care for me. I'd rather come back for Kiddush. No food. Why is there no food? How can you do this? How can I do this? Boom. All right? So he's really upset, and he storms out of the house, and he's angry and he's upset. And she said this, and that's what you really thought of me, and that's what you really thought of me. And they go back, as you know, sometimes when you have a fight, you take out the scorecard and go back 30 years ago what you said, and then 32 years ago, and what your mother said 40 years ago, and what your grandfather said 50 years ago. You make chazar sashir, it goes. And he was also shmeted, and he went for a walk Friday afternoon. He passed by the tish of the Chayz of Lublin, and all of a sudden he said, I can't believe this happened to me. I can't believe I sunk so low, and I got into this. He felt so cheap. And he began to cry. He said, my avoid is worth nothing. All my fasting, all my learning, all my nothing is worth nothing. And at that point, the chassid came running and said, step in here. And the chayza called him over, and the chayza said to him that Min HaShamayim, they wanted to show you, okay, that every person has a Chet HaEgel in their life. No one is perfect. I don't even know if you were a Baal Bechira in this story. And the Rabbi Hashem says, in order to grow, you can't just go off on your own. You have to interrelate with people. You have to deal with the Chet HaEgel and get over it. And I will teach you now how to deal with the Chet HaEgel if you're willing. And he said, Moirav Rabbi, but first let me go home and apologize to my wife. And I will come back. Schachter Ber Moshe, in everyone's life, you start with Yetzias Mitzrayim. Hashem counts us. Okay? I got you all counted. This is what you have to do in life. We blow it. There is a Chet HaEgel. We blow it. And we have to work our way back. HaKadosh Baruch Hu counts us right after the Chet HaEgel. Right after, I can't believe I got into this petty fight. What did I do over milk? I can't believe I did this. Relax. I'm worth nothing. My davening is worth nothing. My learning is worth nothing. Yeah, right. Okay, good. Hashem says, I'm going to recount you. And if you're ready to be recounted, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when you reach back the level of Yetzias Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu counts you a third time. And that's the counting of this week's Sedra. The counting of this week's Sedra is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kishabal Lahashrei Shechinasei Aleim, and they take on the flags and their camps. But what's different about the third time is that Rabbi Hashem says that until now you were on your own. Klal Yisrael before the Chet HaEgel did not have a central point. There was no Mishkan. You're on your own. You're going to run into a Chet HaEgel again. The way we work in our life is, if only I was a size 14. And you're about to say, I wish you were a size 14. Now, Rabbi said the reality is that everyone has to come back. Now, I never understood this. I was by my mechanic one day, and they brought in a car which looked bad. If a car looks bad to me, trust me, it looks bad. And the mechanic looks at it, and he says to the guy, no, this car is totaled. Forget it. It wasn't some type of an accident. So I asked him a question. What does it mean the car's totaled? He said, look, he said, yeah, it could be fixed. It could fix. The transmission is hanging out from one side, the engine from the other side, the door's off. He said, all that could be fixed. What makes a car being totaled? So he explained to me the obvious. He said, if the book value of the car is $5,000 and it costs $10,000 to fix it, so the car's totaled. So I said, it's not really totaled. You could fix it for $10,000. So it doesn't make any sense because you're only down $5,000. So he said, that's true for a car. No car is ever totaled. Total is just math. It's not kedai to fix. That's what you mean when you says total. Now, what if I told this person that he's a neder, a shvua, ichrais, a law, whatever it is. This is the only car in the world he could drive. He can't drive any other car in the world. He has an exclusion on his license. The license says this is the only car in the world you can drive. You cannot drive any other car whatsoever. Okay? There's such a thing? Okay, right. So he said we had someone that's not feeling well, and he has a special car which is designed for his handicap, okay? And it was a car that took a long time for it to work. So there is such a thing. Thank you, Moshe. So take that as a mushal. It's the only car this person can drive because of his physical handicap. So he comes to the mechanic, and he says the car's total. He says to the mechanic, there's no other car in the world that I could drive. I have a special exclusion on my license. It says only this car. If I have to register that to a different car, I wouldn't be able to drive for the next 10 years. They're not going to renew my license. So is this car totaled? No! Because now you're going to spend $10,000 to fix it, $20,000 to fix it, if he has the money, whatever it is, because he has no other car. So the cheshbon that says the car is totaled doesn't work over here. Because totaled really means it's cheaper to buy another car than it is to fix it. But there is no other car. Now what am I trying to bring out of here? There is no such a thing that a neshama is totaled. Because the Rebbe says, I have no other such neshama. Because there's a count of how many of you are on the world. I created all of you by Sheishes and Bereshis. You stood by Har Sinai. If one is missing, the whole count is off. So do you understand? We are all irreplaceable. Every person in this world is irreplaceable. The Rebbe Hashem created you for a reason. Totaled is not an option. So when it says that the Kadosh Baruch Hu was Mashru Shechinasei, this third counting only works with the Ahavas Yisrael. You know, today is the yard site of the Ahavas Yisrael. Ahavas Yisrael was the Blintzes Rebbe at the time of World War I. You could imagine that was a time that they had to leave the little town and they ran off to Vienna, then to Gross Vidarn, to Romania. Right? All Klal Yisrael was racked. I mean, World War I totally unseated the basis of Klal Yisrael. And he maintained his people that were close to him. And I heard this story once from the Blintzes Rebbe in Muncie, Zalzai Gesund and Stark, who grew up by his grandfather. And he said, this is something, I was a little boy, and I was in the room. And this is World War I. People lost their husbands, their lives, their livelihoods. They were uprooted from the villages and the towns. Imagine what people were going through. And an almana came in. And she was crying. She just got news that her husband was killed at the front. And she's standing crying with her kids, no parnasa, no place to live. And whatever they could do for her, they did for her. Everybody was uprooted. And she said, Rebbe. And he says, I remember my grandfather saying to her, he said to her, that if I knew I could help you by jumping into fire, I would jump into fire. And she said, you know what, Rebbe? Then you don't have to, then I have a will to live. Then you don't have to jump into the fire. And he walked out. He said he remembered that as a small child. The Ahavas Yisrael B'chlal was a tremendous anav. They say the mother once took a child and said, my boy lost his cheshik to learn. He doesn't want to learn. So he said, the kid looked at the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, "Oh, so you're like me." Then he called over the boy, "You want to look like me, an old man that doesn't know how to learn? Come on, chaperine when you're young." He used to say the story. The Havitch was a tremendous Talmud Chacham, by the way. But he used to say the story. There was a famous story with the Slavita Shas, and I'm not going to get into it now. But these people were arrested because there was somebody found dead in their factory, and they were accused of killing him for blood, for matzahs or something. And they were brought to prison in Siberia. And the Russians had this system where you have to run through a bunch of Russian soldiers that were lined up on both sides that were zetzing him on the head with swords and all sorts of things with nails on them. And if you survived, they sent you off to Siberia for 20 years. And the two of them ran, and the story is that the yarmulkes fell off and they went back to get it as they were being zetzt, and they survived and they were sent off to Siberia. When they came back as old men after 20 years, they became very big rebbes. People ran to them with kvitlach and they became like big heroes. So the Havas Yisrael once said, you see, there's two kinds of rebbes. There are those, first they get whacked and then they become a rebbe. Then you have someone like me. First I become a rebbe, then they're going to whack me. Why did you become a rebbe? He said, same thing, just the order, he said, is different. A man once came to him and he said, Rebbe, no parnasa. He said, simcha, a positive attitude, is a great school for parnasa. He said, Rebbe, I can't. How could I be happy if I have no parnasa? He goes, what doesn't a person do for parnasa? You have to do it, do it. There's that famous story that he came to, there was a lady about to be thrown out for clothes on the bank, and he came to the banker's house in the morning. Rebbe, why are you here? Rebbe, everything okay? Want some of my pancakes? And the Rebbe gets up and walks out. He runs after him. Rebbe, why are you here? Well, why did you come? Perform a mitzvah. Which mitzvah? There's a mitzvah, Kshem she mitzvah loimer davar hanishma, kach mitzvah shaloi loimer davar shaloi nishma. Just like there's a mitzvah to say something people will listen to, there's a mitzvah not to say something people won't listen to. But Rebbe, what is it that you didn't want to say to me that I'm not going to listen? He says, I can't tell you because you're not going to listen. And I'm going to lose the mitzvah. So that's what, so why'd you come here? What does that mean? It's a mitzvah not to say it. And if I'm sitting in my house, of course I'm not saying it to you. I have to come here not to say it to you. That's why I came, for your breakfast. He goes, well, what is it? He goes, what is it? That widow is being thrown out. The bank is foreclosing. She's going to be on the street. He says, Rabbi, there's nothing I can do about it. The bank has lost. You see, now you blew it. Now I told it to you. You're not going to listen. I lost my mitzvah. I lost my mitzvah. He says, Rabbi, calm down. I lost my mitzvah. So what do you want me to do? I don't know what you make sure she doesn't get thrown out of that bank. She didn't. She doesn't get thrown out of the bank, doesn't throw her out, whatever the case may be. All right? But that's it. The connection, the understanding what our purpose here in this world is, not to video someone having an attack, but to say Tillim for him. Because that's the danger of where we're falling in. Rav Shitzarov used to, by his tish, after Akdamis, there was a tremendous pachad. They felt the pachad of Har Sinai. And in order to break the pachad, he had a batchen there that used to calm things down a little bit. Famous batchen, Rav Zalvo. The Rav Shitzarov used to go to a chassan kallah. He was known, he would say supposed jokes. It wasn't real jokes, it sounded like jokes. People would laugh. Then he would get serious and people would cry, their hearts out, and their lives would be changed. The Rav Shitzarov said when he was a young man, he was fasting, and he was traveling with a group of people, and they came to an inn, and there was an orphan and an orphan girl and boy that were getting married. Somebody recognized him and said, "Du bat chanes." Okay, so he got up there. He said they brought him a thing of schnapps. The batchen drinks a thing of schnapps because you're jokes, you're loose, you're more loose when you start darshaning. He didn't know what to do. He said, no, I'm not drinking. He was fasting. He didn't want to tell him he was fasting. So he said, but the chassan kal, got to make him happy. And the chassan said, please. Like he thought the Rav Shitzarov was not going to drink a good glass of Polish Zeks and Anziga. It doesn't. So I heard from a Polish Yid. I grew up in a Polish shtibel, 96 proof. The Polish are 96 proof. He goes. He told me once, I'll tell you a rule. If you drink this, I used to drink he says, you got to drink 2 cups. I said, why? He says, the first time you drink it, the whole world is upside down. If you drink the second one, it straightens out again, he says. Okay, so the Rav Shitzarov, he saw the chassan kala wanted him to drink, so he took it, and instead of drinking, he poured it into his thing. And then he started the regular, first he made him so happy, and then he brought out the beauty of building a home. He said then they had to leave that night, and it was a freezing, Eastern European winter, and he says it froze. His shirt was soaked. He said he was sick for weeks afterwards, but it changed his whole life. That Metzius Nefesh. Anyway, so the Rav Shitzarov is sitting by the Shavuot table, and he sees the Olam. He's talking about Kabbalah Satayim. There's such a pachad on the Olam, and he turns to Zamvel. He says, Zamvel, why do we eat cheese blintzes? Zamvel says, I don't know. The Rebbe is the one that's eating the blintzes, so how am I supposed to know the reason? So the Rebbe said, okay, I'll tell you. He said, Gevina is cheese. Gevina is Gematria 70. And that's the Ayin Panim L'Torah. There's 70 different pshatim on everything in the Torah. And you know what the dough is? The dough is the kemach, the flour. Im ein kemach, ein Torah. That's the cheese blintzer. So he said, you know why the malachim can't have the Torah? Because they have the cheese, but they don't have the dough. So they asked him, Rebbe, what do you mean? He says, we try to learn, I don't have parnas. I want to sit down to learn. Oh, so I got this call, I may be fired tomorrow. I try to learn, I have taivas. Ein kemach, ein Torah. So I no kemach, no Torah, but you want me to learn, but I don't have kemach, so what do you want me to do? It's the conflict in the Mesiras Nefesh that makes us who we are. The malachim don't have that conflict, okay? Therefore, they can't be malachim. And he turns around and gives Zambul a cheese blintz. And Zambul says, but Rebbe, yeah, why am I eating this cheese blintz? Because you're going to feel now the sweetness of Torah. So he said, yeah, but there's Torah shebeksav and Torah shebal peh. So he said, Zambul, what do you mean? So the Rebbe said he means he wants the second one. That's what he means. He gave it to him, okay? Now take note, what happened when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shemayim? Right? And Malachim said, you can't have the Torah. Moshe answered them. He says, you were down here in this world, 5 minutes, you blew it. You ate basa b'cholov. You ate milk and meat by Avraham Avinu. We gave it up. What's basa b'cholov? Basa b'cholov is a stira. But we understand a stira, there's good and evil. That we understand. You know what's confusing about this life? You have meat, which is good, milk, which is good, and somehow it doesn't go together. We live a life where I don't know which is right, which is wrong. These are everyday nisyonis. I'm trying to be good, and boom, I sink down. My Yetzirah gets me. That's what basa b'cholov is represent. We don't know, it's no clear, definitive line as to what's good, what's not good. The malachim couldn't handle basa b'cholov. The malachim think they're great, but they don't have conflict in their life. They don't have the Yetzirah in their life. So the Yidden are all gung-ho about Kabbalah Satira. We came home. And what's the first thing they have to do? All your kelim atreif. What? So instead of saying, forget it, they say, b'simcha, we're making a new minik, cheese, on Shavuos. That's the makar of the cheese. They came home to the ultimate conflict. Here there's such high levels by Kabbalah Satira, the Medrag of Adam Rishon Kai, the Mechet Eitzadas. They come home to be told, all your kelim atreif. Instead of getting angry, we create a new minig. We create simcha. Tzaddikim used to say, the Rosh Hashanah, a bilka lemer, a bilka leveinig. And Rosh Hashanah, one more roll, one less roll. You know what's being judged on Shavuos? Your whole simchas chayim. Your whole amunah is being judged on Shavuos. Your neshama is being judged on Shavuos. It's where you learn that to say that you're totaled is simply not an option. The Minchas Elazar faces Yartzah, he brings a fascinating thing. It says in Masechtas Idias, in Perik Beis, there's one opinion of Yochanan ben Nuri who holds that Gehenim only has a season. There's an off season for Gehenim and an on season. And the on season is between Pesach Latzeres, between Pesach and Shavuos. That is the only time Gehenim runs. How that works, I don't know. But that's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds. The Minchas Elazar, I don't remember if he says it on his own or he brings it from someone, he says that's the secret reason for our Avelos during these days. That's the secret reason. Because that's when Gehenim is burning. And the Neshamis are being judged. So wait a second. But I thought it's because the Talmidei Rabbi Kiva were not L'loy Hagu Kavod Zeh B'zeh. And the answer is as follows, Rabbi say. The answer is because we've gone through Yetzias Mitzrayim. We've gone through the Chet HaEgel. When it comes to Shavuos, we're up to the third counting. The third counting means, okay, accept your lot. Accept your wife, accept your husband. Accept your father, accept your mother-in-law, accept your father-in-law. Accept your chaverim. Accept your matzav in Parnasa. Accept who you are and say, Hashem, you put me here, I will work with the people around me. Because Baruch says, you do that, I'm mochel you. I'm mochel you at all your averos. You are recounted. That is the tikkun of these days. As much as the neshama is being judged, Chetegel, Avodah Zarah, Gehenim time, Pesach to Shavuos, we have the opportunity of saying, Rabbeinu Shalom, I accept who I am. This Shavuos, give me the emunah to believe. Boom. God says, I pull you out. I pull you out. And that's why we said there's a stira in Sfiras HaOmer. On the one hand, it's a time of simcha, it has the kedusha of Chalamoid, some of the Svarim say. On the other hand, it's avelus, because it's both. It's Gehenim or Gan Eden. It depends whether or not you're willing to accept your life as to who you are. You ever have this experience? You're waiting for someone to pull out of a parking spot, and you're waiting like hours, because when people see that you're trying to pull in, they don't rush me, you know, this is here, the mirror he checks, and this, and yes, you know. So you try to stay a little bit behind. So the guy doesn't see you, you're waiting for the spot. Then, of course, somebody else comes and takes the spot, right? So no-win situation. So today I'm waiting for someone to pull out of the spot, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And he finally pulls out, and there's a pump there. And I'm like, and I said to myself, you know, That's what it is. If you want what belongs to someone else, why aren't you moving? Why aren't you moving quicker? And there's a pump there. So I'm driving down the block, and I'm really in a big rush. And I know you have to live in Borough Park to understand this. And you're waiting for the longest light on the street, and there's a guy in front of you, and the light changes, and he decides to park, to back into a spot. And you know by the time he backs into the spot, so the light's going to turn red again. And I beep! And I'm saying to myself, wait a second. The Kadosh Baruch Hu put us in this matzav. He has a right to park. He's not mechuyev not to park because the light's going to change. So he pulled, and I couldn't hold myself back. I pulled the window down. I said, so happy you found a spot over here. It's really geschmack that you did it. I said it. So he said to me, so now you have another story, he said to me. So I said, I can't win with these things. There was a Yid. I heard the story from an Alta Yid. I don't know where he got it from. But he said in his town, there was a Yid, Rabbi Yaakov, he was a shoemaker. He was doing well, but he said he was an Am Ha'aretz Mid'Oraisa Mid'Rabbanan. And he hated Shavuot. He said, I have no shaykhs to the Torah. What do I have with Shavuot? He hated Shavuot with a passion. And once he came to the Rabbi, he said, I hate Shavuot, I hate Shavuot. I don't know how to learn, I don't know how to daven, I don't know Ibra, I don't know nothing. And the Rav said to him, so join. He said, how can I join? He said, why don't you write a Sefer Torah? And other people will learn with your Sefer Torah. He said he did it. He took every last penny he had a Sefer Torah written. And then he gave the Rav money to buy a shas. And then he said, why don't you help other people learn? Right? Make them free shoes. Do something for them. He said he walked up there and he got shlishi on his Sefer Torah on Shavuos. And he picked up the Torah and he said, I love you, Torah. The Torah is there for us. We stood by Har Sinai. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us tickets and seats. You stood exactly. Row 4, aisle 8. You know, everyone had to sit in the exact place. Because there are people we have to learn from, and there are people we have to teach. And if we believe that my matzav in my life is recognizing the people around me, not too much of a balgaiva, not to learn from the people, and I can force myself to feel the people, then life is different. I'll conclude with one last story. They say there was a guy, you know, he's a poor schlepper, he was a plumber, I don't know what he was. And he came home and he told his wife, you know, the rich guy, they made the cheese blintzes for Shavuos. We never have it, you never make it for me. She goes, I don't have what to make it with. She goes, come on, do it. So he says, what's the cheese blintzes? His wife says, she says, schmack. Okay, so she says, I'll try to find out the recipe. She comes back, she says, make it. She goes, I don't have eggs. Do it without eggs. So I don't have sugar. Do it without sugar. I don't have the good cheese. Do it without the good cheese. I don't have cheese at all. Do it without the cheese. Okay, so finally she does it. And she puts it down in front of him. And he goes, I can't wait to hear what the rich guy tastes like. And he bites into it and he goes, these rich people are a bunch of liars, you know? They just do it to shtech me out. It doesn't taste like anything. I want to tell you something. When you're going to have your cheese blintz this Purim, when you're going to have your cheese blintz, you can have Purim also. When you're going to have your cheese blintz this Shavuos, okay? You decide what it tastes like. If you remember what the Rav Shitzirov said, the inside is the ayin panim l'Torah. The outside is the conflict, is the ein kamach ein Torah. And Rabbeinu Shalom, I hope on Shavuos you gave me the amunah to push through the conflict. If you understand that that is the recipe of your cheese blintza, then you will have the sweetest cheese blintza you ever had in your life.